speakers. We have a very distinguished panel of six people, and I will start by very brief introduction of each of our speakers. So, on my left hand sits Anna Fotyga. Anna Fotyga is former Minister of Foreign Affairs of Poland, member of European Parliament, but before she entered politics, she was activist of the Solidarność movement in Gdańsk, the birthplace of the Solidarność, a movement which has shaken the communism in Europe, I can say. Next to her is Rainhard Kloucek, who was chairing the previous panel. I just remind you that he is a president of Paneuropa Austria, and Rainhard is also the board member of the Forum of the Free Nations of PostRussia, this group which... as I'm too, yes. That's why I know that, right? On my right-hand side sits Walburga Douglas, who is Vice President of International Paneuropa-Union and former member of Swedish Parliament. So she felt like home this morning, or almost. And also the former Europarliamentary. No?
No, her brother was and her father.
My father, my brother.
Father and brother,
Sorry.
the family. And I don't go deeper into the family matters for obvious reasons, because that would be endless. That could be endless. Then we have Yaroslav Yurchyshyn, who is a member of Ukrainian Parliament, Rada, and he is, believe, head of the Human Rights Committee. Freedom of speech, that's right. He came from the anti-corruption movement to politics, and he is one of the, I believe, two most important proponents of the recognition of the colonized nations in Ukrainian Rada. Then on the right hand side is Hans Peter Midttun, who is former military attaché of Norway to Kiev. He's ethnically Norwegian, but he became partly Ukrainian. Spent many years living in Ukraine and travels there even now during the hot war times. And by original trade, he's a naval officer of the Norwegian Navy. And the last but not least for me to introduce is Stefan Hedlund, who is a professor of East European Studies at Uppsala University. So please welcome. And now the topic of our panel is strengthening the cooperation of the states of the free world with captive nations. Allow me to start with my personal experience. Back in 1989, after the collapse of communism in Europe, in my home country, in Slovakia, I became the chairman of the Green Party. I was elected as chairman of Green Party. I was 27 years old. I had no experience with the politics. I'm a medical doctor by education. I happened in that position. So what did I do? Among other things, try to learn something. So I went to Vienna, which is, as you may know, 60 or 70 kilometers from capital of Slovakia, Bratislava. And the Green Party was a member of the Austrian Parliament. So I went there expecting that the Austrian Greens will be able to help us, give us some advice, some training, or some, some kind of support to help us really to establish as a political party. And I returned back empty-handed. And the reason is that they were totally unprepared for the collapse of communism and for the reality that there might come somebody from Slovakia or Czech Republic or Hungary asking them for help in building the Green Party in their party, in the respective countries. So having this experience, I consider very important to discuss, but more importantly to do what we can do to build capacities of the oppressed nations of current Russia, and also regional leaders in various regions of Russia, the capacities for the authentic political life, establishing political parties, building democracy in their territories, and eventually develop their own statehood. I have heard Anna Fotyga speaking about this issue when we first time met 2.5 years or more than 2 years ago at a conference in Poland. So I will turn first to her. Anna, please tell us your take on this.
Thank you, Juraj, and thank you very much indeed for your personal contribution to this forum. Of course, I'm always grateful to Oleg for his endeavors and all other colleagues. The topic of this panel is how institutions or institutional life of the free world, so the collective West, can engage in order to help captive nations find their rightful place within the club. Allow me also to elaborate on my background a little bit. I feel a special feeling for all of these nations because of my own history. It is Solidarność, as you already know, and not only being an activist, I simply was a person active in the foreign department of Solidarność, headquarters of Solidarność, and that was during communist time, for a very short time, openly, then underground, a real free foreign ministry of Poland. So that is, and my family history is fighting for freedom. My great-grandfather was sent twice to Siberia. Second time he simply escaped and spent a lot of time in a variety of prisons. And my grandfather was just 7 when he was imprisoned by Tsarist, so-called democratic Russia, at least perceived by many as Western, as European country. We have to remember that it was very difficult for Polish uprising leaders to convince collective West about atrocities perpetrated by even Tsarist Russia, not to speak about the Soviet Union, because that is something special. My take is that regardless of the state order, the attitude of Russia, being it Tsarist Russia or the Soviet Union or Russian Federation, is imperial attitude with all characteristics that are well known and were discussed during the previous panel. I would like to give at least 2 things that are important and differ Russia from our perception of the statehood. First is it was no tradition of private ownership within Russia and heritage, inheriting this ownership. So no proper building of families. Everything was dependent on the emperor's will. People were given their entity, their financial resources, including land ownership, by tsars. And also, when we speak about Russia's history, the Orthodox Church of Russia was always on the side of the rulers. During the Soviet Union, it was fully infiltrated, taken over and fully infiltrated by the secret service and tool of this. I wouldn't like to go deep into this, but that is also some, I would say, route for influencing certain groups of Western societies, not properly understanding history and developments. We have to also to know that after collapse of the Soviet Union and common perception of the end of Cold War, Russia stayed fully controlled by secret service, KGB, was able to introduce, influence large group of our societies with a variety of totally strange ideas. So now when we speak, I would like to return to basics. We speak about captive nations, not captive regions. Because in those regions, it is slightly more difficult to speak about regions, as elites of these regions are simply usually Russians with KGB roots, if not still active members of this, introducing a variety of active measures, in particular accompanying the full-scale war of aggression on Ukraine. And I wouldn't like, our panel is big, so I wouldn't like to speak too long, but fate of actually all of us, not only captive nations, in particular the nations that are free, nominally free, but bordering with territories of war or closed. I mean NATO perception, eastern flank, but whole European NATO territory of NATO. We are also endangered, and we have to remember that threats posed in December, or blackmail posed in December 2021 by Putin again, vis-a-vis West, in particular NATO, and separately US, was much broader, was returned to state of play before 1997. So before majority of countries of eastern flank entered or were able to join NATO and the EU. So it is important. US has, I would say, institutionalized a way of coping with the notion of captive nations. We may discuss US policy, but it is there. While within the EU, and we are much closer and much more endangered by existing threats, variety of tools used vis-a-vis our nations, we simply rely on goodwill of individual people who are probably more knowledgeable about issues happening there within Russian Federation and around. I would name countries like Georgia, Moldova, Armenia, Azerbaijan, others. We have to think about stronger institutionalization, because knowledge about this region, about history, about level of complication, when we speak of decolonization, is really something to be concerned about. I think that we need more effort put by individual NATO allies, EU member states, elites, political elites of these states, because challenge is extremely close. You do not need, I would say, decades or centuries of experience to feel it now. It is really close, and we have to wake up and look into this. But once more, I repeat, a result of war waged by Russian Federation against Ukraine is to define our common fate, not only captive nations.